Hey everyone, I'm Stacey Epstein, and this is AI've Got Questions. Last season, I had such a great time talking to founders of marketing focused AI technology companies. But this season, we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm sitting down with some of the most highly respected CMOs and learning about how they are leveraging AI in their organizations so that you can learn it too. Let's hear who's next. Today in our podcast, as we now focus on CMOs, I'm super thrilled to have my friend Ashley Stepien joining us on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
as I thought of this idea to evolve the podcast and move into hearing from real world CMOs about what they're doing, you were literally the first person I thought of. We were at that dinner a few weeks ago, and you had so many really interesting examples of how you have evolved the way you run marketing based on innovations in AI. So I'm just excited to talk more. Some of the things we talked about, I want to hear how they're going. But before we get into that, let's just introduce our audience to you. I'm sure a lot of people know you already. You've been at a lot of really cool places in your career. So maybe just tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So I came up the SDR route, actually. First job out of college, just needed to make a buck. I found myself pounding phones. And I share that because I developed a lot of empathy for the sales motion. And that informs a lot of how I think about marketing and how I can partner better with sales to drive revenue. At the end of the day, I think from a marketing perspective, our job is to drive growth and revenue in some way, shape, or form. So that's informed a lot of kind of how I've approached my journey with marketing. I've been with companies early days with Marketo, Pendo, Webflow, and then from there made the jump to Ramp. Spent some time at Ramp. And then from Ramp, I have been at Amplitude, and now I am at Hex. So yeah, I've had a great run, seen a lot of cool things, but it's just crazy. I feel like I'm learning more in the last 6 months than maybe in the last 6 years. So it's a really great time to be a marketing leader.
Yeah, it's a great time. In some ways, it's a scary and intimidating time. I love that you started as an SDR, though. I was also in sales early in my career, and I do think it gives you so much perspective on what it's like to be on the front lines of saying that positioning and trying to close a deal and it either working or not working. So I did not know that about you, but it doesn't surprise me because a lot of great marketing leaders have a really good appreciation for sales. But back to this lazy time, I feel like when I get requests for podcast guests, a lot of them are just need to know even how to get started. I think we're now, a couple of years in on this whole Gen AI motion revolution, you could even call it. And sadly, there are still some marketing teams that really, other than maybe using ChatGPT here and there, really haven't embraced AI in their execution. So let's start with the basics. What were some of the very first things you did to leverage AI as a marketing leader? And then let's get as complex and sophisticated as where you are today.
I think at this point, everyone out there has had their hands on a ChatGPT or Claude. And if you haven't, or you've been resisting it, the power of those tools can't be underestimated. And so if you are feeling intimidated by it, that is still a very fair place to start. I did listen to a podcast the other day that says you will get dumber if you use ChatGPT for the wrong things, but you can get smarter if you use it for the right things. And I think that that is something that we have to be thinking about as marketers, because there's the basic things, right? Like you can ask ChatGPT to write things for you or to summarize things for you or do a little bit of research for you. I think that's kind of in the makes you dumber category. But if you ask ChatGPT to be a thought partner, or if you ask ChatGPT to actually go build something critical for you, solve a critical problem for you, that's where you get smarter, because you're really challenging both yourself and the system to think critically about first principles and solving a problem. And so that's where I'd encourage all marketers to just think about how they're leveraging these really basic tools, because there's ways that you will get smarter and think differently if you use those tools correctly. So that's kind of my first bucket and the stepping stone I think everyone should be comfortable making. The second low hanging fruit is if you are marketing, especially in tech right now, you have access, probably like a huge marketing tech stack already. Every one of these tools is integrating AI in some way, shape, or form. So whether it's Salesforce or Notion or Webflow for your website, whatever it might be, they're all starting to integrate AI functionality in. Spend some time understanding what's already available to you, because that will be very natural in the workflows you already have going. It'll just be about optimizing and like learning what's possible. Those are kind of like my 2 tips for people that are feeling like, where do I even start? Challenge ChatGPT and then look at your existing tech stack to figure out what's already available to you.
Those are great. Yeah, that second one I think is particularly great advice because I do think every company is scrambling to make sure they incorporate Gen AI into what they're doing, and you could just very easily just start there. Low hanging fruit. Then what next? Well, let's go back to ChatGPT a little bit. I'd love some actual examples that you asked ChatGPT to do with your team in executing marketing.
Yeah. So like the big aha moment for me was when I realized I could use those tools to build, what Claude calls artifacts. I'm a little preferential to Claude, and my team and I have endless debates about ChatGPT, Claude. I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's really a style choice. That uh, Claude has this concept of artifacts, which are essentially mini products that can live in perpetuity. So instead of just using ChatGPT or Claude as like a conversational interface, you can actually have them create these mini products. So I share that because what I wanted to do was create solutions that my team could use over and over and over again. And so what we did is we all got in a room and said, what are all the things we do that we just hate doing? And we got like a long list of stuff. And there was mundane stuff and there was like some pretty hard stuff too. So I'll give you an example of the mundane and then I'll give you an example of like some very hard stuff too. One thing that came up was like, I really hate A/B testing emails. Like I hate having to like kind of go through that process. It just feels like a total time suck. We put that into Claude and challenged it to build an email testing engine. And we gave it a prompt that essentially said, we want to be able to test the audience, the subject line, the time of day, the geo, the content, and the call to action, and the from. Go build us an artifact that would allow us to always do that. It came up with a mini product that essentially you could put in 1, 2, or 3 versions of an email, and it would test against all of that automatically and then tell you the optimized version you should send. Now that just lives in perpetuity for my team. It is a link that we can go back to, refer to, use all the time. And we've sort of eliminated that manual workflow that used to exist. So that is like kind of a mundane thing. Email's been around for ages, but we took something that maybe used to take like an annoying 45 minutes and we got it down to 5. That's an example of taking the mundane and just simplifying it. If we talk about a hard option, I think maybe the great uncharted territory for AI and marketing is around PMM, so product marketing. And God bless product marketing. It is such hard work. Product marketing is one of those areas where it's not like revenue marketing in that like, oh, you hit your goal and therefore it is good. Product marketing, everyone has an opinion. It is super subjective. AI can actually turn it into more of an objective exercise. So an example there was we were working on new core messaging, new core positioning, and we really wanted to test that messaging and positioning with our customers. We did set up many customer calls and kind of ran them through the pitches, but we wanted to figure out how to do this at scale. So historically, we would maybe hire a research agency or a third party to like help us access very large audiences. But now with AI and in my case, Claude, we built a synthetic data set. And we went in and we told Claude, this is what our audience looks like. These are what their job titles might be. This is where the size of their companies, the geo that they might live in, the stage company, all the information we could possibly get our hands on about our entire ICP. We loaded it into Claude and asked it to build us a synthetic data set that we could test messaging against. It came up with that audience. It came up with very real people. It gave us personas. This is Jenny. She's the chief data officer at a company that has 500 full-time employees, da, 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 da. And then we asked it to build a scorecard for us. We wanted to test it against things like urgency, relevancy, differentiation, clarity, things like that. And we would run our messaging. So I would take even just like our 30-second pitch or our elevator pitch, drop it into this artifact that Claude gave us, and it would run it through and say, Jenny would respond to this elevator pitch with, a 5 in clarity, but a 3 in differentiation. And it would kind of give us a score based on how Jenny would receive that. But Michael, who's maybe more junior, received the message differently. So we were able to kind of take all that information to figure out this is the message that works on a broad scale. This is what works for senior leaders, junior leaders, small companies, big companies. And then we were able to optimize against that. And we probably did that in under 2 hours, whereas before that probably would have taken us best case 2 months, but maybe 6 months in reality. So that was a very complex use case that AI was able to take on for us and really kind of boil down.
Yeah, that's incredible. I want to go back and talk about the easy one too, but kept thinking as you were talking about earlier, you and I were chatting about launches and launch videos. You guys just had a launch yesterday. Congratulations. And
Thank
I
you.
just watched your launch video, and I'm in the process of building a launch video for one of my clients. And you get a lot of opinions, right? CEO always has an opinion, and maybe your head of sales has an opinion, and you can sit around and say, "We think this is going to resonate," but now you have an actual judge that can say, "I know your CEO really loves that video, but to be honest with you, it is not going to resonate with your audience who is nothing like your CEO." So not only does it solve the problem of testing, but it even solves a bigger problem, which is there you finally have an actual definite answer on whether something is going to resonate or not.
Yep,
Amazing.
absolutely.
That's the beautiful thing about AI is that some of these things that were always very complex. In the past, we used to have to hire research firms and do the test groups. And now, not only do I not even necessarily have to pay a vendor to do it, but I can just go in and spend a few hours and ask AI to do it. That's been my motto with using AI is, oh, we have something to do. Well, now my default is how can AI make that faster and better? And I think that goes back to your first use case. I mean, for me, the aha was the brilliance of just getting everybody in a room and ranking the things that nobody likes to do. Because usually people don't like the boring, mundane, I know this will make it better, but if I have to do this again. So I love that idea of just ask AI.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you brought up an interesting point, and it's one that my team and I have been wrestling with, I mean, daily, if not like 2 hours ago. This concept of build versus buy, which we've been dealing with, our entire careers as software vendors. I think this is really going to be tested in the age of AI. I can only really speak to my marketing experience, but the build versus buy right now is the most interesting problem I have seen in the 20 years of doing this, in that I have found in a lot of cases, might be an unpopular opinion, I can build to 80% of what maybe a buy product might look like. And so these vendors who are building AI solutions that are very either verticalized or just kind of specialized to a certain functionality to solve a certain problem, I think I want to challenge them all to like really think about how do you take on the world of marketing, not just this use case or this particular solution, because I am finding that I can get myself far enough along by building that I don't know that I can justify the spend. And that's going to be a really interesting friction, I think, for the next 12 months before companies really shake out where the real value add is.
Yeah. Interesting. And that begs the question of what kind of resources do I need on my team? Do you have somebody on your team that when you have the idea, I wonder if AI can do this, that they go and do it, or do you just do it yourself by asking AI how to do it?
But we're definitely trying to build a culture of everyone just being proactive about it, but I do have that person, and I don't wanna say I have her by accident. She's someone that I've worked with for years and have taken her with me to different roles, but she's this very naturally curious, naturally data-oriented, and pretty technical marketer, who, more so comes from operations, and I've just found she's really predisposed to think in first principles to start with. And
Mhm.
so what I've challenged her with, technically she owns all of our operations and strategy. What I've challenged her with though is actually don't go build all the AI solutions. Teach the team how to do
Mm.
it themselves. Teach them to fish. Otherwise, you will just be a bottleneck continuing to live, and then none of the team gets better either. So that's really been like my challenge to her is like be the AI czar. Do not be like the AI mecca where we all have to go. So I think that's an important distinction to make when everyone's considering the makeup of their team.
Yeah, great one. I love it. And that's another beauty of AI is that it's not that hard. And I keep saying I'm going to publish a show where I talk about how I do this podcast because I can't believe how many people come to me and say, "How do you do your podcast? I want to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll spend 15 minutes telling you about all the things that I do. But here's how I built this podcast. I went to AI and I said, I want to build a podcast. And then it told me, go to Riverside to do the recording, go to Buzzsprout. And I didn't know of any of these platforms, but the curiosity can just start at AI. And it's amazing because it has answers. I love that you have that AIs are, and I think things can go a lot faster and people can learn a lot faster how to use it. But also, you can use it to teach you how to use it. Right now, I'm in the middle of planning my daughter's bat mitzvah, and there's so many things that it's like planning a wedding, but
Yeah.
there's merging of lists, and there's just all these things where I'm like, "Oh, I really don't feel like typing all of this in one more time. I can just upload it, and then it will merge it into the thing that I want it to be merged
Mhm.
into." But I don't know how to do that. I just ask it how to do it. So I love that culture of getting your team into the mode of just go figure it out in AI because it will be your assistant. It will be your co-pilot.
I think it's the greatest gift we can give our teams right now. I mean, as I think about where I am in my career, I don't want to say I can see the horizon, but I can. I hope I can anyways. But my entire team is pretty junior and by design. And I think the best thing I can do for them right now is actually to morph into the new marketer that will be important a year or two from now. I do think the makeup of marketing and the organization in general is going to go through a massive transformation. It's happening. I'm watching it. And I think we owe it to our team members to help them navigate this. And they all have to become experts very quickly.
Totally. Well, I was excited to get to this point on the show. And since we're talking about your team, you told me that you've done a pretty drastic restructuring of roles on your team. So I'd love for you to explain that. And then I want to hear how it's going because that was a few weeks, maybe even a month or two ago that you told me about that. So I want to explain what you've done and then let's hear how it's going.
Yeah. So, like a constant evolution and like something I'm thinking about and learning about and maybe changing daily. But I have arrived to a couple of conclusions based on just getting my hands super dirty in the last couple of months with AI. The first conclusion I have is that marketing organizations will be completely flattened. I don't know that there will be the need for the middle management or what I call the dot connectors anymore. There will be two camps. You will either end up a dot connector who's, getting all the right people on the call or in the meeting and, project managing it and bringing it to fruition, or you will be a builder. And as these builders get more and more empowered with tooling, we will not need the dock connectors as much anymore. And when you look at marketing, in a lot of cases, especially in bigger marketing organizations, there's a lot of bureaucracy with that dock connecting, which is why I believe it's going to get flattened. So that's the first thing. Because of that flattening, I think we will no longer have extreme specialization in marketing roles. There are some things that will always live on, right? Like we will always need demand generation. We will always need product marketing. We always need brand and these other things. But because of how empowered everyone will now be, you will be able to embody a lot of those functions in a singular person, which is why I'm really pushing my team to become generalists. And I would say we're very, very far from my vision, but my vision is more so that they will be able to act as mini GMs, where I give them a problem and not a job. And the problem might be something like, we're going to go win the enterprise in California. And normally you give a marketing org that problem. You're bringing in demand gen, you're bringing in, field marketing, you're bringing in product marketing, maybe comms has a role in that, brand, et cetera. And you've got, what used to be called the tiger team trying to figure it out together. But I believe now with this tooling, you will be able to give either a person or maybe a few people that problem, and they're going to be able to self-service and a lot of those functions to solve that problem. And so I'm encouraging my entire team to think really hard about a few things, learning about the discipline that they are not familiar with. They were hired as a demand gen person or as a product marketing person. I'm encouraging to learn the other disciplines and get very comfortable there. Understand why it's important and how it works so that at least you can ask the right questions when you are working with AI. And then also starting to understand first principles thinking, which has been around forever and it's thrown around a lot. I do think in marketing though, we run a lot of playbooks. We run a lot of what we've seen work before, which is what humans do. We found a solution, let's keep running with it. First principles really forces you to be like, we're starting from scratch. We don't know what will work. Let's just assume nothing. And getting somewhat seasoned marketers to start from there means they have to unlearn all of the things they already know,
Yeah.
which is super challenging. So on one hand, learning about all these other disciplines, but on the other hand, unlearning all the things you already know is really where I'm trying to get my team to challenge themselves and get to that first principles place.
Interesting. So the ultimate vision is a team of people that are multifunctional, that are leveraging AI to help build and judge the positioning, as we talked about earlier, are using AI to figure out how to segment and build a campaign that goes to the right audience. And theoretically, with the co-pilot of AI, any person should be able to do multi-functions by themselves. That's the theory, right? Yeah.
That's
So
great hope anyways.
I think it's so fascinating. We as CMOs have to be multifunctional. I love the interview question when they say, well, are you more product marketing focused? Are you demand gen? And I always get irritated. I always say, I am focused on whatever is the biggest fire or the biggest opportunity on any given day. I have to know it all, right? And I think now that we have such powerful capabilities because of AI, it it can be so much easier for everybody to be that generalist. And also, I think we'll all be a lot more effective because we're thinking through the full life cycle of marketing in one thought process versus like my cog in the wheel is this and I can't be successful with demand gen because the positioning isn't good. I love that you're thinking in such fresh, new ways because I do think it's so easy for all of us to just apply what we already know and maybe slap AI on it and move a little faster versus really fundamentally think about how it can change the way we work. Because that's where we're headed. That vision of 5 years from now is not going to look anything like what we've been managing in the past. So I thank you for explaining that. I'm sure it's a journey, but to be one of the first to do it is certainly interesting, and we all wanna know how it's going, so we'll have to check back in on it.
Yeah, great. Wish me luck.
Yeah, I wish you luck, for sure, and like I said earlier, if you ever wanna call and chat about it, I'd love to I'd love to riff on it.
I
Any
will.
last any last thoughts, visions, fun things that you're doing with AI before we close out?
I think the other thing, which is been bubbling up, especially across LinkedIn and marketing leaders that I know I follow, this era in marketing is going to be such an interesting era in that we're going to throw back real hard to the arts and crafts center. Um, I'm sure you remember where we were bucking. We are not the arts and crafts center. We are, we are strategic and we are stakeholders and we drive real impact to the business. And now the big differentiator is going to be your brand and how you're showing up in the world. And that'll be truly the thing that I think a lot of marketers are going to have to reclaim. It got put on the back burner for so long. And I just really believe that AI has sort of unchained us from the desk. And
Mhm.
it's going to allow us to go back to the arts and crafts and the beauty of marketing that I think has been lost through all the automation. And I just want to encourage everyone to look at the brand opportunity as the real fun that we're going to have here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love seeing it. I got so tired of defending my teeny tiny brand and awareness budget.
Yep.
So I love to see it. But I also, along with that, think it also brings back that whole creativity. So many of the execution can be done through AI, but the real differentiators are that creative thought that only comes from a human.
Right.
And I'm excited about that too because I think that's what differentiates us as marketers is that create
Um,
that thought that we can bring. Well, it certainly paints a very interesting and bright future for us marketers. So I want to thank you again for coming on the show. I've been excited to have you. And I do want to check back in 6 months or so and hear how it's evolving, hear how that whole new team structure is working out. And we'll stay in touch for sure.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.